Hello and welcome to another episode of No Lot Time. My name is Obed Velez, and with me, is the most interesting man in the world, Joel Young.
What's good, Nolo time? I know
Uh,
why you're laughing.
oh
You
no,
guys are on watching
oh
the show.
no.
You have no idea, but whew,
Whew. Yeah, Joel and I have spoken about this before, right? If it weren't for, I guess, previous commitments, we would have a sort of like No Load Time After Dark, where we can probably go more in depth in other topics. And yeah,
oh my
we're having
goodness.
just a conversation that was freaking hilarious, and it's just you know what? Hey, I'm miserable because of allergies right now. It's awful out there. It's freaking pollen
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah,
Cars are yellow and all this crap on the floor. Hey, you gotta make the best of it. So,
it's true.
how are you, sir?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. I don't have too much of a what's up here. We'll talk about the Bad Batch here in a second. I'm not caught up to episode 4 yet. I'm gonna watch it after this, but on the other hand, I did get a little moment to catch. I don't think I talked about it last week, but I've been watching Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix. Um, I'm not done with it. I know they dropped the whole thing there, but I'm just past episode 5 now. I think there's 8 total. So far, decent attempts. I've seen a very different ranging responses. I've seen people who say they love this thing. I've seen people who have just been ripping this thing to shreds, saying it's no
Interesting.
good. And I understand it because like I personally am not someone who is deep into the lore of this. This is not something that I'm a big fan of. I know there's a big fan of people around my age that grew up watching this and
Right.
were really big fans of it. And so seeing an adaptation like this, they were hoping for it to blow away what came out in 2010, which was that was something.
it was
So
it was yeah.
it definitely not a differences to celebrate,
right.
but it was one of those films that I think they tried for its time, but now with this at least there's a little bit more of a sensitivity around how you portray certain places and things, and
Right.
having the representation was a step in the right direction for sure. I mean, but at the same extent, like one thing Netflix struggles with a lot is just like quality of productions. I've talked about this a lot. Like they're very much becoming what cable television was, where it's like there's always something to watch, but doesn't necessarily mean that it's amazing things to watch.
I can see where you're coming
No,
from.
like it's become, and I'm not trying to hate on this. Like I watch on Netflix, I'm not saying, but like it's kind of become like how like back in the day when you only had like NBC, ABC, and and like Fox, and you just have to watch NCIS or whatever. It's like, well, it may not have been the best show, but this one was on TV, and so you had to watch something, whatever. And like it's kind of become that way. There's a lot of things on there, but quality isn't always there. This one you can tell they tried to put a budget behind it. There's some things they do that I'm like, wow, this looks really good. For what it is. I'm comparing Netflix against itself, not against other entities. Um, but regardless, script writing, acting, there's some areas of improvement that does sometimes take you a little bit out of it. And this is just
Right.
someone who's not talking about the lore, not talking about the story. I don't feel like I have the right to comment on that as much. The way I've seen other people take deep dives on like the way they represented this character should have been that.
Okay.
I think that what I have seen is they trying so far to there's so many episodes of the original animated show. Like, there's no way that they're gonna be able to directly adapt every single one of those episodes, every single one of those storylines. So they're kind of just jumping through to try and get on certain points that they want to hit off on. And
Right.
I like anyone who knows any adaptation like that should have been expected. But in that, for me, a show that's about the Avatar, The Last Airbender, sometimes it feels like he's taking a back seat, like the kind of Obi-Wan Kenobiing him, like how like in the Kenobi show, like he like the character was called Kenobi, but sometimes other characters had a little bit too much spotlight. That's
Mm.
kind of how I feel sometimes with this, where I'm like, I kind of expect to see like this is the last one, like the prophecy of this chosen avatar, and then we're getting some of these other side stories and significant times around them where I'm not as interested in it maybe as I am in this character that's supposed to fulfill, these prophecies. But I'm sure people will watch the show and like, we have so many episodes to tell this long form thing in an animated form. It probably hits differently. So
Right.
again, that's just my initial reaction. I'll talk more about it when I finish it all out. So far, from a standpoint of an adaptation, from something that's just to be like animation or anime, from the ones that I've seen from Netflix, I think so far for me, I actually liked One Piece a lot more. I actually would recommend people watch the first season. I don't know what they'll do afterwards, but at
Yeah.
least the first season was pretty good.
And that's another one where you should not expect a 1-to-1 translation,
Hmm.
because One Piece is at episode what, like 1,080 right now, or like
Right. There's
something
no way.
insane. Like it's not gonna happen, right?
No, no.
So they're gonna definitely try and compact it. So yeah, yeah. So Avatar for me is like one of those. It's weird, right? Because when Avatar came out, like uh, I've always liked that whole, of course, the whole martial arts
Oh
fighting type
yeah.
of like anime and animation. But when Avatar came out, I think I was at that point in my life where I could not afford cable.
Yeah.
So and I was already in my 20s. I couldn't afford cable at the time. So I never, like, there was no connection there. I watched an episode here and there, but like, and I know it's supposed to be a really good show, right? I guess Dave Filoni was a writer, right, on that show.
On some of it, yeah.
So um it's just that it's not, I have no nostalgia for it, so it doesn't really move my needle. Like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I know it's supposed to be good, right? And look, the show looks good. I watched the movie. So I just found that
Ooh.
movie very, very boring. Like, overall, again, I didn't me not being attached to the property probably made it better, because I went in and I was like, it's just a boring movie. But like, after hearing fans and like hardcore fans specifically, like there's some glaring plot problems with the movie, and the movie's not great, it, by no means. And but as an outsider just watching the movie, it was just like a boring, like, martial arts kids movie kind of thing. It wasn't really offensive, right? But for some
Yeah.
people, it's like, now Dragon Ball Evolution, on the other hand, I got, I have thoughts that on that movie that I cannot express on this family friendly podcast, sir. I can.
That's on the other
It's
show.
on the other show that we were
Sorry, I keep
discussing
making jokes
offline.
about it. Well, we can talk about this other crazy video and this other
Oh,
stuff.
yes, yes. You know what? If we ever come out with a Patreon where you have to actually pay us, that's probably gonna be your Patreon thing. It's
Like
gonna be like an unfiltered,
the crazy stuff in this world.
not necessarily family friendly, and we can go into other topics and go nuts. So
Oh man, like I cannot believe that they created this thing. Oh
yeah.
Lord.
So um I played a ton of Jedi Survivor.
Interesting.
I went back
Okay.
and played. Started doing the bounty hunter stuff that I did a couple of, and never went through. Started like treasure hunting, kind of, and going around. They fixed performance mode. It's not perfect, but it's better. You can, like, there's, I don't think I really noticed screen tearing, because screen tearing was a major problem before. I don't think I've noticed it, and it just seems a lot smoother. There is still a problem, and I think it's just an engine issue, with assets loading, and just some, like, loading glitches. Like, things are not loading as fast as they should, and I
Mm,
think it's just optimization is not up to par on that game overall. That could be a whole different thing. But
sure.
like, there's this huge thing with Greece when you board the ship and you pick your destination, and then he T poses for like 15 seconds, and then just boop, pops up on the pilot seat. And it's like,
Oh,
and my daughter's like, "Is he T posing?" Like, she saw it. I was like,
wow,
"Yeah,
she's
yeah, he is T posing." I was like, "That's weird because his arms are like down." I was like, "Oh, well, that's still T posing." So it was weird, and it happened all the time. Like, it was not on every time you switch to a planet, he would T pose, and then poop, and then pop into the pilot seat. It was a, I don't know if it was that session or I never caught it, but it was like every time, dude. And but no, that game's good. Level design on that game is really strange, and just going back and trying to play try to play it after, I don't know, Zelda, is just aggravating. Just,
yeah.
it's like, what do you mean I can't climb this thing? What do you mean I can't jump down and glide or whatever? Like, it's, you know, I appreciate what Breath of the Wild did for gaming, because it is one of the crown jewels of gaming for sure, right? And Tears of the Kingdom, same thing. But unfortunately, just broke like how in my mind games should work. And every time that there's an open world game and I try to go somewhere, it's like I'm trying to go to this place and I can just climb down and get there, but I can't climb, right? And that's
Mm,
and it's rough. It's rough. I'm not saying that every game should do it, right? But I just think that the level design in this game is just not necessarily great. And
I agree.
yeah, and what I and this is just going back and playing, right? If you mainline the game, I think that you will find no problems with the level design. It's when you try to go deeper into the levels that this problems start like popping up, and then you can see it, right? It's like it's very strange. It's like, and this could very well be a possibility, right? That we'll talk about Respawn later. That the mainline story level design was designed by one person, and then the other like treasure stuff was designed by someone else entirely, and there's a clash on the level design that is like, well, this was fun before, it's not fun anymore, right? So I found that interesting. But I mean, regardless, game's good. It's still a fun game. I've seen it pretty cheap lately, like for $30, going around on sale. It's a good game if you're, if you like Star Wars, or if you even if you like adventure platformers. It's a great game. I think it's still pretty good. I gave
Yeah.
Angel, and I downloaded the demo for Final Fantasy.
Oh, you didn't wait for that pure
I could,
experience. I
no,
had
no,
to
no.
test it out a little.
I can't wait for tomorrow. Oh no, I will work all day tomorrow. I have like 13 hours ahead of me tomorrow. I can't
But
game.
you'll know it to
I
be in
can't.
your possession.
It'll be here. FedEx send me a text. It'll be here tomorrow. It's
That's a
not
good
gonna be like
feeling.
Final Fantasy 16 where it got delayed for like 3 days and I couldn't play that weekend, right? So it'll be here. Um, I will try my best to wake up as early as I can on Saturday to play this game, as long as I
Wow.
can in the morning. It is phenomenal. Like,
Hmm.
that demo is like, I didn't want to get too deep into like the menus, right?
Oh, sure.
And you can only get, you can't really go in too deep, because of course it's a demo, right? And they're saving they're saving stuff for later, but it just like, on the surface, like, it improves on the part one, uh, in every aspect when it comes to like combat. Combat is feels way more balanced. The storytelling point, it's still on point, right? The scene direction, the cutscene direction is incredible. The music, again, like, forget about it. It's insane. All very, very, very good. Right. Everything was great until I turn on performance mode. I don't know if you've seen any
It
of those
bugged
videos.
out. No, I haven't seen anything.
Bro, it's really blurry. It looks like a Nintendo 64. No, no, no.
No, no, no.
It's super blurry. Like
Wow.
the drop in image quality is alarmingly bad. I heard that the final or the game that they shipped out, because codes the game's been reviewed for over a week now.
Right.
Um, those the full game performance mode is better, and they confirmed that there will be a patch dropping tonight for to address some of those other problems. But
Right.
it was very weird, very, very weird.
Wow.
um that said, the just graphics mode looks really, really good. Like, it looks phenomenal. It just runs at 30 FPS, but
Okay.
I didn't notice any slowdowns, anything out of the ordinary, any weird stuff. There's some popping that I saw on the Digital Foundry review. They couldn't go too in depth because of the embargo. The embargo was pretty aggressive, so they did show a few technical problems that they've encountered. I didn't see them. To me, it was
Yeah.
just a performance mode thing. But it's like, oh, my eyes! You've seen the meme, the SpongeBob meme.
Yeah.
So that's like, I had to turn it back too. It's like, I can't do this. It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's real bad. And it's unfortunate because Final Fantasy 16 had the same exact problem, where you turn on performance mode and the game looks like you smeared Vaseline over your TV. It's like, no, what the
Whew.
heck is going on? It runs really good though. Like, it runs at 60 and it's like super, super fluid, but it looks real bad. So no, I stuck with the with the graphics mode. It's basically like the first hour and a half of the game, or kind of like the intro level, and they do give you another piece that came out last week that gives you a little bit more of battle and party mix and whatnot, and played around a little bit without. It's like, all right, I don't want to go too crazy on this. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to spoil the the just getting in and the freshness of it. So I stopped it. It's like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna stop it here and I'll play something else, whatever. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And then out of nowhere today, they dropped that Dragon Ball Fighters is getting, finally, after all this time, a next gen update. So PS5 and Xbox are getting a graphics update, and they're getting rollback net code on both PS5 and Xbox and PC. PS4 and Xbox One are not getting rollback. That was very oh, and you cannot crossplay. So and
Interesting.
even on PlayStation. So you cannot roll back to a PS. You cannot play PS5 on PS4 unless you turn off rollback.
Wow.
So it is very weird. So they gave you the option to turn it off. That way you can play with PS4 people. That said, I don't know. I don't think I mentioned it on the podcast. My daughter was like, a couple weeks ago. It's like, hey, have you played this online? And recently, it's like, no, it's been years. Dude, I jump in and I win the first like two matches. It's like, oh, let's go,
Never left you.
let's go. And then I lost the other two. Well, I lost two out of three. So
Oh,
I won one. I lost one, won one, lost one. Right, but it's fun. Like, it's still fun. The game's still real good.
let's go.
I don't know. CEO Taco, what do you think, Joel? Could I?
I think
Could
you
I?
should. That
Oh,
badges up.
yeah, badges up. Mine's back here too. It's like it's hanging
There we
out
go.
here somewhere. Oh man, probably, probably,
I think you should.
probably.
Why not? What the heck? Why
Yeah,
not?
we'll see. I'll have to ask
For
for the
funsies.
for funsies. Yeah, there you go. Even if I drown in the pools, I don't. I'll be fine.
Who cares?
Just for fun.
For
But yeah,
fun.
man, it was having a good time with a few things. All right, Before we talk about Batch, let's do I guess our first or full deep dive into Echo
Yep,
because I
go for it.
finished that. Um, Overall, I liked it. Asterisk. um, Correct me if I'm wrong. This was supposed to be longer, right?
I, I don't know that I didn't hear.
Okay, because I heard something like that. Um,
Yeah.
okay, it this feels like episode 3 ended and they cut like half of the show and then they
Hmm.
they fast
Interesting.
track the ending, and it's
Hmm.
unfortunate. So and I can tell you, and here's why I think that's the case. There's there was a setup with the cousin that never happened. Like they're setting up for things that never happen, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, it was unfortunate because I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the characters. Um, I think that everyone was good. The acting was fine. The action sequences were good. And if that's the case, it's unfortunate because I wanted to see more. And I don't know if it was shortened because of budget or whatever the reason was, but yeah, you can tell that it's like a third of the show is missing, and yeah, that's the only negative that I have, honestly. Everything else
Hmm.
I kind of like. The grandma remind me of my grandma, and I think that was very familiar. Like
Okay.
like she
Okay.
actually looked like my grandma,
Oh wow.
and um that kind of like was very like almost comforting. It's like
Sure.
this
No.
lady
Sure.
kind of looks like my grandma, passed away 12 years ago or whatever,
Yeah.
and just watching it and like kind of like the way like her mannerisms and everything, and it was weird and
Wow.
but comforting at the same time, and I was like,
Okay.
okay, so I'm enjoying this like a lot, right?
It's awesome.
But I wanted to see more, and you can tell that there's a missing piece. There's something there. There's something missing, and um, you know, that's the unfortunate part of it. Now that said, um, it is. Have they said that this is going to lead up to Daredevil?
No, but I mean that end credit scene,
Right, right,
like
yeah,
that's clearly the tie-in.
right. Um, no, it was good. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed it quite a bit. Yeah, other than it feels like there's a hole in the middle. It I liked it. I have nothing really negative to say about it, honestly,
I
other than it feels like the ending was rushed.
Yeah, I mean like I'm not gonna say I disagree with you. I think I just have a different overall. Like I felt like the first two, three episodes, like I was like, okay, I'm into this, and then I just kind of just lost interest as it went on personally. And honestly, like, yes, I agree. You can tell that there was more, and they just kind of had to chop it short. But I don't know. Overall, I felt like the Daredevil stuff is what amplified the overall project. Like the Kingpin stuff and Daredevil, like all those connections is what made it cooler. And I felt like on her own, Echo, I wasn't personally as I didn't think it was terrible. It just didn't feel the strongest to me for a solo outing. But I think for me, what messed me up was that we're talking spoilers here, guys, about Echo. But like when you got to that very end, and it's like she's like her grandma and her sister are like force pushing, and I don't know, man. It felt like I don't know if you've seen the ending of Miss Marvel or anything like that, but like that's how like they kind of did it with her too. Like at the end, where it's like the supersonic bubble she makes, and like it's very bizarre, and it just I don't know, like it's like she like grabs like him and like makes him like have like a tears of his childhood, and that's her way of just kind of stopping him. And like you look at what Echo is, and I'm not gonna pretend to be the hardcore Echo fanatic and comic book avid reader, but the character is extremely similar to like the Taskmaster, which ironically they did the whole gender swap and all that stuff. It wasn't, that wasn't necessarily what got me with Taskmaster. Some other things they did that was could have been a little bit better the way they was portraying Black Widow. I digress. But the character is kind of similar to the Taskmaster, where basically she is an echo of what she fights against. She learns her fighting styles and then uses that against them. Is extremely brilliant in that standpoint. And the showrunner of this basically said, I think that's a lame ability. I don't think that's a good ability that she has. So instead, I'm going to basically try and give her this echo of all the women down her family line to be the thing that's calling out to her that suddenly makes it cooler, more amplified. And for me, that's what made me kind of come out of it a little bit more. Not because of her having this, cultural back. That's fine. I get that's a part of what makes her special. I just think it was like the carry through that it was supposed to be deep. And for me, it just felt very kind of loosey goosey. That
And that's
just
what I
didn't
mean, that
work
they
the
that
same.
it feels like there was a build up with more build up with the cousin and the grandma, that it's not there. Like there's missing pieces
I
that could
just
have.
didn't care. Like I'm
Well,
just telling you,
that's the thing. It's like I
yeah,
think
I
I think that
personally,
ending, or that
yeah.
sequence specifically, right, could have been more impactful if the buildup would have been there, but
Yeah.
apparently the buildup was
So
cut.
the
So
next time she goes on a fight against like in Secret Wars, it's gonna be her grandma and her cousin like force pushing somebody. You know what I'm saying?
no,
Like
I
it
don't think that's
just
gonna be the
it just
case.
think like it was a little, and I feel like I've said this before, like they do this particularly with female characters, like very often. Like it's trying to be sometimes so much of one thing.
I mean,
And sometimes like it backfires.
clearly it's your fault that Madame Web failed, Joel. I mean, I
Right?
don't know if you've
Oh,
heard.
I when I read that, I was like, oh no, no,
I
no,
don't know
no.
if you heard,
No,
Joel.
no, no.
You're the one that was bashing it. I don't.
Supposedly toxic males. Guys, that's not the problem with that
Joel's so
movie.
toxic. You guys have no idea.
No, let's just be straight here. But statistics tells us that specifically minorities, Latinos, and women run the box office. That has been a proven thing. Women didn't come out and support this movie, and probably Latinos probably didn't that much either, as to tell you, as the most part in Americas particularly. So you don't get the Barbie numbers by just getting toxic males to suddenly like the Barbie movie. Whether they
Right,
liked it or not, the Barbie movie did good. But I digress.
right,
Anyways,
right.
but like with this, the facts are facts. Echo, like with this show, Echo, man, I'm just saying, I feel like they did to her what, like I've joked before, they wouldn't do with other American. Like you wouldn't have Daredevil be rewritten to basically say, okay, he needs to now have, these other characters with him to suddenly have the abilities to do what he does. That suddenly his senses are heightened because, he's remembering his mom and like, someone else. These characters are part of their stories. I don't mind them having that culture or family connection that help build who they are. I think that's actually important for storytelling purposes. I just saying that like it's the empowering side of it that kind of almost takes away from your hero and backfires. And I think it could have been done a little bit more. Like she could have been like Batman in essence, dude. Like she could have been that's how it is in the comics. Like she's straight up, studying and being the detective and this incredible stuff. And I don't know, but I digress. I understand where you're coming from. It was not the worst show at all. It was it
No,
was
no.
actually
Yeah.
it was actually
I
pretty entertaining regardless. I didn't watch the whole thing, and I
yeah.
did think it was some funny stuff and some good things.
Yeah.
There's promise for the future.
Definitely. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for sure. Um did you see, I don't, we'll hear, I don't want to, throw a tangent, but did you see that Kojima started watching Moon Knight? And
No.
he started posting about it.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Is he
he's like,
liking it?
yeah, so he's like, oh, so I was waiting for the Moon Knight Blu-ray to drop so I could watch it. It's like, oh, the snob, right?
Yeah.
But I was watching the documentary, which, by the way, is not in U.S. Disney Plus. I don't know if you saw.
There's a documentary?
There's a Kojima documentary about Kojima on Disney Plus,
Oh. Why?
but it's not in U.S. In the U.S. Disney Plus.
Is it
I,
like a dub thing? Like they just didn't dub it.
I
They
don't
kept it like
know.
in his
Disney
natural
Plus
language.
is like, what are you doing? But I started looking for it because I saw it came out on the 23rd. So on the 23rd, I was looking for it. It's like no, and then I clicked on the link. It's like this video is not available in your region. Oh,
VPN. Oh, sorry.
oh, failed. So, um, yeah, so he watched the first episode and he's like, "Oh, I and yeah, so I watched the first episode and I think it was great and like Oscar Isaac was ugly and pathetic and I love it." Cuz it's like that. Well, that's a good thing because I know the guy and he's nothing like this and this
Okay,
was
okay.
great. Yeah. So, so, it was really good. So yeah, Kojima will definitely see what he has to say about the rest of Moon Knight, but so far he's enjoying it.
Wow, wow.
um, all right, Bad Batch. You haven't caught up all the way. Today's episode was real good.
We have a
Just watch,
reverse. Last
rewatch
week
it.
you had
Right,
only seen the first, and I had seen all three. And
right,
this week you're caught up, and I haven't seen one of
right.
them.
But we can jump to that third episode. Um, cause that was really good.
I told you
That's real good, dude.
that's some
That's real
Andor
good.
level stuff.
Spoilers, guys. Spoilers. Um, I mean, it's clearly Snoke, right? It's clear. Like they reference what it's referenced in Mando, the Project Necromancer, and what Pershing was working on, and what they needed Grogu for, and all that stuff, right? That's the project that they're working on. Um, are we going to see further in? I don't know, but clearly they're trying to connect it. I don't want to say so. They're. It's unfortunate that Star Wars has to resource to this sort of storytelling to be able to like they. Okay, hear me out. If they would have explained why Palpatine is back in Episode 9, this could have been about something else, like something new. But now we gotta go back and Mando and this and do specific episodes talking about how Palpatine came back in Episode 9 when you could have done something fresh. And gotta correct the problem. I'm glad you're correcting it, right? It wasn't a problem to me. I know that they're like I'm I'm fine. Whatever. Somehow Palpatine returned and we just carried on, right? But uh, I'm glad that at least they're trying to give us an explanation. And it's like, okay, that's fine. That's totally fine. At some point, right, later on, maybe in the Ahsoka movie, in the big final movie that they do, we'll probably see um more of, Project Necromancer, but uh, you know, Palpy's there. Palpy's saying it's like, yo, it's like whatever you need. Like there's like not like this is like top priority stuff. You ask me what you need and you'll get it, basically, right? Um, yeah, it was good. It was very good, man. You were so right about it.
I told you. I think, like I was saying before, but and if you heard what I was alluding to in last week's podcast, where I was saying, like episode one of season three is a build up. It's very slow. It's the slowest episode that you have so far. I mean, I haven't seen episode four yet, but I have those first three. I felt like it was like the slowest one, but it's necessary for the world building and for like the payoff that you get by episode three, because it's so much on par with what Star Wars is at its fundamentals. Like Star Wars is all about hope, and like when everyone loses hope about breaking free of this place, time has gone, Omega has gone older. Day after day, the same thing. Nothing has fundamentally changed. And yet
Right.
she still holds on to the fact that I will be free. This is not going to be the end of my story. I've lived this before, as a clone. And then you see how, when you get to this like moment, the times that it's about everything that's come back to her, the day after day of getting tested with her blood and being discarded by Nala Se, and and having Emery, continue to have her work with the animals in this specific outpost, and her knowing, where Crosshairs is at all time and keeping those daily conversations with him, even when he didn't say he didn't care, he obviously still did because it
Right.
was building hope in him. And when you get to that point when, Nala says, you got to go now. This is the day that we're doing this thing. It just so happens that the Emperor Palpy is showing up the same day that you got to break free. I love
Right.
Crosshair's reaction. He's like,
Yeah.
the Emperor is here. Like,
Right.
I cannot get you free of here while the Emperor, like, this is the worst day for us to be trying to break free from here
Yeah.
with Palpy showing up. And what a great entrance with, like, from an animation standpoint,
Yeah.
the Imperial Guards walking out first, and then here he comes right out with his battalion and the entire fleet standing and greeting him. What a great moment
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah. And again, Ian McDermott being on point. It's- of course, goat. But yeah, it was good.
And when Crosshair, when Omega gets with Crosshair out and says like, "Hey, there's this fallen ship. Like, we got to get to this ship. This is the only
Right.
way. We've been calling help from Hunter and Wrecker, and they're cornered and it's not working." And she's like, "I'm so sorry." And that's the moment that he flips and he says, "No, you've gotten us this far. Thank you. We're not done here yet. There's still something else. Have you heard this specific tactical maneuver before?"
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's a perfect part of that redemption arc. It's earned. It's not
Yeah.
just happens out of the blue.
Right.
It's
It's real.
like
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
it's because I'm sorry, Kylo Ren's turn. I didn't feel it the same way. It wasn't horrible, but it didn't have a strong implication. Crosshair, who's a clone robot dude, his turn to his brethren and sister is gonna be something that's so special
And they were
because of
trying to,
how it was built
and
up.
they were trying to deprogram him too. Like he's
Right.
busted.
Well, they were trying to deprogram him, and then until the whole spoiler is he chose it. Like, the chip was not
Yeah. No,
malfunctioning.
but
Like, it's a
in
choice.
the prison, like right
Oh
now, he
yeah,
was
yeah.
getting, yeah.
Which obviously, like, them messing with his hands, like,
Right.
that's so sad. Some people have wondered where they're trying to take. I sort of theory talk about this, how trying to take maybe his power and trying to take the best
The
of each of their
skill.
abilities and
Yeah.
put it into one. I don't know how true this is. Interesting. I know it's kind of like the Nazis. They did experimentation on everything and anything. It's
Right.
always been the way that Star Wars has been alluded to in that kind of allegorical way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it was good. That was good.
Yeah.
You'll like this one. This one was
Okay.
good too. Yeah, a little. It starts a little slowish towards like the middle, but then it picks up and it's good. It's
Okay.
good.
Nice.
You'll see
Nice.
it's good. Cool. All right. Yeah, I guess we can go into Star Wars news because there is a report, alleged report that the Rey movie has a title, and that movie starts filming pretty soon.
Yeah.
So Star Wars Episode 10, A New Beginning, it's supposed to be the title for the movie. A New Beginning sounds like a cop out. It should have been something more interesting. It should have been like New Jedi Order or something cooler, right? I think A New Beginning. If they're setting this movie, was it like 10 years after
Yeah.
Episode 9? Um, which I guess time wise is fine, right? If you do it like that, but there should be something more interesting. It's again like the Mandalorian and Grogu. It's like fine, right? We know who they are and they're getting a movie, but why that title, right? I guess that like thinking about it, they probably don't want to confuse the audience at least on that one, but on this one they should have probably come up with something more creative, if you ask me. That being said, um, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But Joel, when's this movie supposed to be starting filming?
I think it's supposed to start filming next year.
Okay,
I think it's next year.
gotcha. Very
Um,
interesting. But yeah, what do you
I,
think?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. I don't want to be negative right away about it because I'm totally fine with this movie being made. There's just certain things about it that I don't want. One of them being is I don't want it to be an episodic film. Like them basically saying the Star Wars Episode 10, if that's true, I
Hmm.
don't want that. They're forcing down the throats of people the whole that it's a continuation of the Skywalker saga. It's
Okay.
these Skywalker films being, episodic films essentially. And I think people have said we want to kind of get away from that for multiple reasons. Even people who, love the originals and stuff like that. And people who also just felt like she just called herself a Skywalker because she can. And it's like, you're not really the family. So it almost feels like one of those, again, kind of forcing that into the whole narrative. I don't like that it's an episodic. Episode 10 just don't want that to be the case. So that's one of the first things that I would say. And then the other part of it too is like if you are making this one the episodic films, those films need to be truly epics. Like those are the films that you pour a boatload of money into and time and resources. Like I remember when The Force Awakens was first being announced and the amount of the photos of JJ and George sitting together and talking for long periods of time and the we all know how it ended in the end, right? How we feel about it.
Yeah.
But like there was a feeling at that time that you can't shake. That's like they really are like saying like this is a huge deal. This just doesn't feel like a huge deal in that kind of way. This doesn't feel like right now like this magical deep dive. And when you have
Yeah.
the person who's creating this making comments that almost makes you feel like you know what was is not that great, but it's for a very particular reason that can be proven to be factually wrong what was said, but that's okay. um like that's just not the kind of narrative I want around this film. I want this film to still be made, but I want it to be made on its own merit, not because it's an episodic film, not because it's trying to prove anything, but purely because it's like, hey, this is just the actual movie that we're making. This is just the actual a story that we're trying to tell about Ray, and let it just be a Ray movie or a Ray trilogy, and let it live on its own. Not because it has to be compared to episodic films, not because it has to be part of the Skywalker saga. It's just her films, and I'm okay with that. So
Right.
it needs to have that from me. But this is all rumors that could be true, and they could take away episode 10 from the title, and we'll be fine. If you're listening to us right now, Lucasfilm, Kathleen, it's okay. Yeah, you got time. If this is true,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
prove this to be wrong, and we just
Right.
talk Todd air and it never happens. That's okay.
There's no official title yet. There's
It's
still
not
time.
official.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. I totally see where you're coming from. Right. When those pictures of JJ and George and the cast reading the script and all that when that came out, and even when Force Awakens came out, um, I think Force Awakens is definitely. I mean, the best out of the three. Right.
Yeah.
So there was some effort made, right? They still stole us the having the original crew back together in the Falcon, right? That was they stole that from us, but um it just started falling apart with like the Last Jedi. Like
Yeah.
narratively, it's just, and I get it, but and then Rise of Skywalker just tried to bandage the Last Jedi, and it just didn't hit the mark, right? And unfortunately,
Yeah.
but you know they gotta be really careful with this. And Star Wars is made by the fans, right? And if they don't get the fans hyped, um, I don't think new fans are not gonna be enough to get this going. So
Yeah.
they
That's
gotta
the
get the
thing.
they
It's
gotta get
for
the
another
OGs on board.
generation. There's another generation that
Yeah,
I think appreciates this more, like the original stuff there.
right.
And I personally, like, you and I are of the same mindset. Like we are not we don't have a certain level of anger and emotion towards those sequel films. It just wasn't as magical for us as maybe we wanted it to be, as special as we wanted, because of how much we love Star Wars.
Right.
And there's some very clear obvious things that could have made a fixer. But yeah, like like you're saying, I don't know that that generation. It's gonna, it's supposed to be 10 years out. The movie will come out probably less than 10 years from you had the last film that came out, and so it's kind of like, I don't. It kind of feels a little too soon, maybe. But if it is gonna come out, maybe it'll surprise us all. I like Ray enough to wanna see more of what they do with her character. I still feel like there are things that they can do that can even fix what came out before. But it still doesn't change that those things still existed and still came out, and that's
Right.
tough.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. We'll see, man. All right, Joel. So what's happening over at Marvel, sir? There's rumors that there's things pieces moving. I know that there is a new chief of Disney Studios that doesn't really affect Marvel that much because that's Kevin's running the show. But what's going on, man?
Yeah, I won't get too deep. There's one particular things from this article that I want to talk about, but the Hollywood Reporter put out an exclusive about how quietly Marvel, the headline is how Marvel's quietly retooling amid superhero fatigue, and that, basically Kevin Feige, quote unquote, has said they're not going to give it up, according to an insider, and how they're really on the inside having these conversations and admitting it for real, that they know that there are problems and that Feige is extremely committed to trying to solve it. And I think he is the guy that can do it. It's just it's gonna take time. And so yeah, like I'm talking about, like in the article, it reveals about all the reshoots that were done for the Agatha Coven of Chaos, which no, I don't want that series, guys. Why did you spend so much money to do this? I mean, literally hundreds of millions of dollars are being put into this project. I'm very concerned, but I digress. And just talking about, like, obviously, like the Fantastic Four is like a big deal, part of this big plan of things just going on. But the main thing that I wanted to talk about just really quickly, we keep talking about titles. Let's keep that trend going. And the main one here that came out of there is that Marvel internally has already decided they are going to be changing the title of the next Avengers movie. It will not be called King Dynasty. It will be something else. And according to the insider, that was the plan even before the Majors debacle, because they saw the results at the box office from Quantumania. I don't believe that for a second. I don't think because of Ant-Man they said we're going to change the movie from King Dynasty. I don't buy that for a second. That sounds like the insider was fed information to make sure they keep them happy in the article, but that's just my opinion. We know a little bit about PR and marketing a little bit, but like I will say that when it comes to them changing the title, that just is a bigger indication that there's a very strong chance Kang won't be in this movie, or if he is, he's not the main villain at all, and that there's probably something else that they're changing out story wise. Now, this is interesting because we all know Secret Wars is coming, and the idea was like Kang will end one thing and Secret Wars will kick off a whole nother thing. Does that mean that they're going to move Secret Wars to be sooner? Does that mean that they are, gonna push Secret Wars further out and then do some other major, like Avengers versus X-Men coming out sooner or something? I don't
Right.
know, but I think this can completely mean, if they're just changing the title alone, this can completely mean that there is no King and they just ended with what they did in Loki season 2 and call it a day.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts on it, man?
Yeah, the Kang thing that's been rumored for a few weeks now since the judgment on Jonathan Majors happened.
Yeah.
So I could see them moving in that direction. I don't necessarily. I mean, based on how they've acted in the past, they're probably not gonna recast. I think, and just to kind of put things in perspective, right? Rhodey got recast because that wasn't Disney back then, and that was like Marvel Studios was operating as their own thing.
Correct.
Um, and I, you know, Fantastic Four is going to be really interesting because that's going to
Agreed.
tell us where this is going. I mean, Deadpool could definitely do that too. Um, but more than Deadpool, I think that Fantastic Four, I was going to call it Fan Four Stick, No, 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 no,
Don't
no, no,
don't
no,
don't speak
no,
that out too soon. Too
no,
soon.
no, no.
Don't put that blasphemy on this film.
Man, um, I think Fantastic Four is gonna be the turning point. Like this is gonna turn us to whatever the next thing is, whether it be Doom, whether it be Galactus. That's gonna that's gonna lead us in that direction. There's rumors about people being cast as Doom or wanting to play Doom, or there's many different things, right? Where there's still nothing official. I don't know if you saw that allegedly, like Henry Cavill has been cast for something, and but
Yeah.
they haven't said anything yet. So
Yeah.
he could be Silver Surfer. He could be
The-
he could be Cyclops. I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know. Right? It's like,
Yeah.
um, so we'll have to wait and see. Um, but when it comes to the TV stuff, yeah, like they just keep throwing stuff that, like, hey, maybe they'll like this thing, and a lot of the TV stuff seems like thrown together at this point, and that is disappointing to say the least. So
For sure.
if they cut back on that, give us 2 movies a year, give us 2 series a year. That's all you need to do, right? So you
That's
don't
all we're
need to go.
asking.
You don't need to go a movie a month, like or like a movie every 4 months. It's like, give us 2 movies a year, give us 2 shows a year to kind of bridge those two things, or they can even. I don't think they should be introducing major stuff in the TV series unless it's a major character like Loki, right? He had the right to introduce and do that story that's uh picking up in Deadpool. He just because the character deserved it, right? Um,
Or like in like Wanda, what they tried with
right.
WandaVision, like they had a right to try and set up Doctor Strange and stuff like that because of.
It did, but to me, the most disappointing part, right, it set up Scarlet Witch in Doctor Strange, but where the heck is White Vision, dude? It's like, so.
Well, there's a lot of issues with that. Doctor Strange is the one that dropped the ball, not WandaVision. WandaVision set
Right,
it up.
right,
It's more
right.
reverse. Like it's
I
earned.
yep. Yeah, I agree. Um, so yeah, well, we'll see. It's very
This year's
interesting,
one them. This year's one them where we get one Marvel film, one MCU film.
right?
So
Right.
this is a good example that we're talking about. Like, oh, give us two. Like this year we get one. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see. Um, are we, sir, heading to a video game crash?
Oh no,
I don't think so.
no.
But there's a ton of stuff happening this week when it comes to studios either closing or laying off a bunch of people. So there are some smaller studios, but we're gonna talk about Sony and EA. So Sony laid off around 900 total people that worked at their studios. They are closing London studio, and they are closing what was left of Studio Liverpool. The layoffs also affected Insomniac, Gorilla, and Naughty Dog. Um, okay, and I I don't want to sound the alarms because there's people out there sounding alarms. We've like Microsoft already went through layoffs. Like all the major companies are going through layoffs, right? What I think of the PlayStation stuff, right, is that this is the projects that Jim Ryan was wanting to have, and Jim Ryan and the other lady that left Sony recently.
Yeah.
These are the people that more than likely got hired to work on those projects, which were the games as a service uh, properties that they were working on. there's multiple canceled games. They have the only one that's been confirmed from the Sony side that I've heard of is the Twisted Metal games as a service that they were working on that was canceled. So it seems like they're refocusing, and that's why we're having this, right? Um, apparently, there's going to be layoffs in Japan too, but Japan they you just can't get laid off. Like they'll probably put you on a basement until you quit. That's usually what they do. So they'll take away your email and they'll put you in your basement where you have no cell phone service. You have nothing to do until you quit. So that's usually how they operate. They don't really fire people in Japan. So unless you do like something like very very egregious, right? So we'll see how they handle that. But just talking about Sony right now, yeah, this I think this is the remnant of Jim Ryan's projects, and whatever they were working on, whatever those games as a service were, this is what this is. I think.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to sound the alarm. I mean, we've seen again like Microsoft has gone through a couple waves already. Xbox went through wave not too long ago. Um, and we've seen. I think I saw something on Threads. It was like it's so far this year. It's been like 8,100 gaming jobs that have been cut.
Wow.
So this is across the entire industry. Games are getting really expensive. Games are getting really hard to make. Um, just Harada from Namco was saying that between Tekken 7 and 8, they've almost doubled their budget, like from one game to the other. Um, GTA 6 is supposed to be like a 2 billion right now for their budget. So these things are getting out of control, right? Spider-Man had like a $250 million
Yeah.
budget or something. So something's got to give. Like I'm gonna ruffle some feathers with what I'm gonna say, and it is the unfortunate reality. We either start games should pricing in games should either come up substantially, or people should start expecting like things not to look as good, because that's what really is taking a long time. These graphics are getting more advanced. These things take a long time to get to work properly, and I think we should start getting comfortable with the idea of games being more money and you having to spend $100 on a game. Um, and I say this not because I wanted to, but if you go back to the PS1 days and you paid $50 for, I don't know, Street Fighter Alpha, right? Um, and you pay $60 for Street Fighter 6, you know, how much the Street Fighter Alpha cost to make versus Street Fighter 6, and you're only charging a $10 more,
Yeah.
right? Like at some point, right? And that's when DLC comes in and it gets out of control with like Street Fighter being like $100 to get all the costumes. So hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta find other ways to make money, and it's unfortunate, right? And I know that, and people take a lot of dunks on Nintendo. Nintendo, like it's been in the news this week. They sued um, a Switch emulator maker, which
They sue
were
everybody.
monetizing. Well, they were monetizing their emulator, right? And because of this
Yeah.
emulator, like allegedly a million downloads of Tears of the Kingdom happened before the game was released. Heck yeah, man! Nintendo, you can go ahead and sue the heck out of them. Yeah, these guys are disrupting. They're not disrupting the industry. They're stealing money, right? This is
Yep.
intellectual property that you're mishandling. So, um, you know, I know I'm gonna catch some flack from people out there, but it is the unfortunate reality of it, right? Um, you know, things are gonna take a long time. Things are gonna have DLC, um, and and we they should, you know, I know the industry has been really cautious on their pricing, and that's why we see so much DLC and DLC not being $10 like it was back in the day. Like now, I think the DLC for Elden Ring is $40, and right, I would pay 60 for it. Like, but that's just me, right? Um, that said, you know, if you try to sell me a half bake, you know, you pay for the content, right? If you're selling me a 4 hour half baked game for $80, then I'm not gonna buy it, right? You gotta make your money make sense. Um, yeah, a fighting game, yeah, an FPS, things that you can get longevity off out of. Yeah, you can just sell for the premium, right? Um, but it's unfortunate to see like Sega selling uh, the uh, the Sonic Superstars as a $60 game like the same week as freaking Mario Wonder came out and get destroyed in sales because not because your game is not good. I don't want to say that, right? I don't want to. I haven't played Superstars. I heard it's an okay game, but you cannot pretend to like if you give me two games right now, right? If you give me, I don't know, let's see, a high budget Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? You give me that game, and you know, the game's $70 base, and then you come out with I don't know, a smaller adventure game that's like a 10 hour game that has low replay value, but it's still a good game, and you're trying to charge 80 for it, then there's a disparity there. And your game is using pixel graphics, and you know, you see where I'm coming from, right?
Yep.
It's like it's like cars. Not every car is made equal. It's like
No.
you can buy. Hey, you know what? You can buy a Toyota, and it's gonna get you to point A to point B, and it's gonna work great, and it's gonna be fine for you and for your needs, right? Um, but you cannot expect that Toyota to go to do Ferrari uh, speeds, and that's where we're at when it comes to gaming, right? It's like a lot of people are charging Ferrari prices for Toyotas,
Wow.
and and that's a problem. So the industry needs a shakeup when it comes to pricing. I think that a lot of the more recent indie stuff, like the TMNT games, some of the collections have been fairly priced. I say dude, like Shredder's Revenge and Streets of Rage 4 are steals. Like those games are excellent games, smaller games. You know, they're $30 or $20, and you can have hours and hours of fun. I mean, and they're great, right? But could you imagine if, like, oh yeah, we're doing Shredder's Revenge is gonna be $80, and there's gonna be a $20 DLC on top of that? No, guys, come on, right? I paid for the DLC for Shredder's Revenge. It's like, because it's a product that I want to support. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Before we go into EA, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't have too deep of a thoughts on how to fix this and to stop this. I just what hits me is just the fact that like what you just said is, this is a world, this is a across the industry type of thing. I would go even farther. Like we're seeing not even just this industry, but other industries having some major hits coming into this year, some major shakeups of things that, Sometimes you could just glance over in the news if you're not paying too much attention, be like, so this place just cut X amount of jobs and
Right.
and budgets and what have you. And it's like, forget everything else. People just lost their jobs, okay?
Right.
Like people just lost a source of income. People just lost something that maybe they were committed to and wanted to grow in and be there for a long time. Like that's a very serious thing that I don't
A
want to
lot of
stop
people
and
too
make light of. A lot of
so
people
far this year. Yeah.
so far this year. So like for that reason, like I'm very sad. I'm very sad to hear that. And my heart goes out to these people, and I really hope that they're able to get back on their feet well, and a good great opportunities come their way quickly, so they're able to be in the industry that they want to be in and doing work that they enjoy and paid well and doing good, all that good stuff. And with that also comes the state just having to make the statement that this is not an American thing. This is a worldwide thing. These studios are in London and you're seeing them get shut down. You're just not, just like, okay, video games are collapsing and everything else is fine. That's not true. There are many industries right now who are starting to see these same types of effects. And so for that reason, like it's like the everything's fine and the house is on fire behind you meme. That's how it feels like with sometimes when you're seeing people trying to brush this stuff over. I don't care if you're a fan of PlayStation. I don't care if you're a friend of Nintendo. I don't care if you're a fan of Microsoft. This is not normal to see these large amounts of people
Right.
getting laid off. And I think what you proposed though, Bet, about considering price points, considering budgets, and considering the effects, and I love how you eloquently said about not all games being made equal. That's another part of it. Just because we're saying that maybe some games maybe need to have a price change doesn't mean that some of these other games need to be being charged the same types of premiums. It's just like you could be naive and think that the industry's doing great just because your favorite games are selling good or having tons of views on trailers and whatnot. But some of these smaller first party games and stuff, like you're gonna get stories like this, and it's a sign of, hey, read the room. This may not be the way that you're operating is not going to be sustainable for the long term. And I don't want some people to lose their jobs because of not a better change in strategy. So I can only hope from here on out, the whatever intel that's being made, there's some of those decisions, like you're saying, to be consider some innovative changes, and things that have not been
Yeah.
considered before, wouldn't be open to saying before, in order to have the industry still survive and thrive at the end.
Yeah. Um, I think like it's unfortunate, right? It's been what like I said, it's like 8,100 people so far this year. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's concerning, and there's a trend. Just moving into EA, right? 670 people lost their jobs at EA.
Yeah.
The Star Wars first person game that Respawn was working on canceled.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
allegedly was a Mandalorian game that we talked about, I think, last week or the week before.
Yep.
That's not, yeah, I guess it's not happening. Um, yeah, it's happening. It's happening everywhere now. Now EA is committed to making um, the a third Call Kestis game. That's great. And I know that Sony's committed on making their own thing. I think that a lot of these jobs are gonna get streamlined. EA is gonna I'm sorry, not EA. AI is going to be a more uh, prevalent force in the industry. Um, but when it comes to if the industry wants to continue growing, and I know that there's every once in a while you'll get your Call of Duties and your Fortnites and your your games that are gonna keep going and going and going and growing, but you know some companies don't have that, and they have to put out multiple games a year and commit to schedules, and it's hard, right? And I know,
Yeah.
and I know, and I'm not a developer. Like I went to school to be a developer. I didn't go through with it, um, because I saw the brick wall in front of me, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like I recognized it early enough where I didn't crash against that wall. It's not easy, guys. Like you guys, and I know
Yep.
it's real
Yep.
easy to be behind your computer and just point fingers and
Yep.
tell and say that developers are lazy and say that you would have done something else because you probably have no clue what you're talking about.
Pretty
Right.
much. Yep.
And I, you know, I don't, even if you, even if you're a small developer, even if you're a small studio, even if you're a one man team, like there's, like the guy that made Axiom Verge, I'm not going to criticize you because your product's out there and you made it
True.
happen.
Yeah, it's true.
Like it doesn't matter how big or how small your studio is, your game comes out and it's playable, props. I'm not,
Yeah.
and it's good. Props. Like one thing is to have a good game, and one thing is to throw out there like big rigs and uh, and right to hell retribution, all this garbage, right?
Yeah.
But if your game's out there and you made it and your game's good, you know what? I'm not gonna try. I'm gonna talk trash about you or your game. Like I know, and like I just to wrap it up, because I can go on. I can go on for hours talking about this topic. We I used to dunk a lot on Phil Fish. I don't think Phil Fish was um the most eloquent or the considerate. Uh, he was quite infamous out there. And I disagree with a lot of the points that he made out there. Um, but you cannot deny that Fez is a great game,
Oh, come on. Absolutely.
and you may not like the guy, right?
But
The
the
guy, and
creation.
he quit the industry because people hated on him, and rightfully so. Like I was one of them. like
Oh
I've
yeah.
like I've outgrown that phase of my life, right? But I was very vocal when it came to criticizing him. But you cannot deny it. Like I can criticize you on like stuff you think about and like personal stuff, right? But you made your game, dude. I
Absolutely.
respect you for that. But you know, and we need to grow up. This is a conversation. You know what we should do, Joel? We should plan a special like gaming episode
It'd be good.
and just
Yeah.
go ham on this thing.
Yep.
We should do
I'd
that.
love to. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we can talk about it. I can talk about it for hours, dude. Like I love this thing, and something that I'm very passionate for, and I have great ideas. I know that they're not great, but I don't pretend Microsoft to send me an email before they make choices like some of the other people out there.
Oh.
But they to fix the problems, you gotta make drastic changes, and sometimes we as the fans need to be receptive to some of these
Yeah.
changes. So we'll see what happens, man. All right, bro. Let's go ahead and wrap it up.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining with us. We want to encourage you to stay subscribed to No Load Time on podcast platforms of your choice, places like SoundCloud, Amazon Music, Spotify. Find us, subscribe to us. We'd really appreciate it. Additionally, you can subscribe to No Load Time on the No Load Time YouTube channel. That's No Load Time on YouTube. You could like those videos, drop us a comment, and share these episodes with your friends and family. We'd really appreciate it. Additionally, you can follow us on social media at No Load Time. That's at No Load Time. Places like Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, TikTok. We're there. Go ahead and give us a follow. Additionally, you can follow us on Twitch. That's No Load Time. That's No Load Time all together on Twitch. And last but not least, if you have a question or comment or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Just don't ask us to change a game or a character because we don't know some of these developers. We got some interesting emails this week. But
we're not associated. That was
we're not
I
associated.
made
We
it. I
we
made it.
talk about the games, but we don't make them. So
There you go.
uh So send us an email about other stuff. Maybe we could talk about on the podcast to noloadtime@gmail.com. It's noloadtime@gmail.com. And maybe, just maybe again, we'll talk about it on a future episode. Thank you all so much for sticking with us, and we'll be with you next time.
Thank you guys. Stay safe. We'll see you again next time.